So, what if I told you that the kid who barely scraped by with a zero point 0.9 GPA in high school ended up teaching at Harvard? It sounds impossible, right? Well, that is the incredible true story at the very heart of Todd Rose's book, Square Peg. It's a journey that really forces us to question everything we think we know about failure and success. So, how on earth did he do it? Well, let's dive in and unpack that mystery. I mean, this quote from Rosen himself, it really says it all, doesn't it? The expected path for him, the one nobody would have been surprised by, seemed to lead straight to a jail cell, but instead, he ends up at Harvard. The gap between those two futures is just massive, and it's in that gap where this whole story lives. It makes us ask a really powerful question. What if the reason some kids struggle so much isn't a problem with them at all, but a problem with the environments we put them in? This one question, right here, this is the key that unlocks this entire story. Now, to really get a handle on this, we need to look at what Rose calls the square peg paradox. And honestly, there's no better case study than his own life. He was the classic kid who just could not fit into the round hole of school. You know, he wasn't just a little disruptive, he was practically a master of chaos. He tells this wild story about throwing not one, not two, but 6 stink bombs in his art class, causing a full-scale evacuation of the room. After that, you can bet the label Troublemaker stuck to him like glue. But it wasn't just about pranks. This moment here, this is heartbreaking, and it's a real turning point. After spending nights working on a poem for a contest, a real, genuine attempt to try and engage, his teacher's reaction was just devastating. She straight up accused him of plagiarism and gave him an F. And for Rose, well, that was pretty much it. He just gave up. And this is what that looks like. A 0.9 GPA. He eventually dropped out, a total failure by pretty much every standard measure we have. Which brings us right back to that million-dollar question. How does this kid get to Harvard? Well, to find the answer, we have to look beyond the kid and at the system itself. Because here's the thing. Rose argues his story isn't just about him. It's about a system that wasn't built for his kind of mind. And, as it turns out, it might not really be built for most of us. And he was so far from alone. Just look at this number, 1.2 million. That's how many students drop out of U.S. high schools every single year. I mean, that's 7,000 a day. It's staggering. The system isn't just failing a few kids here and there. Rose argues this failure is built right into its very design. So, to figure out why, we've got to go back in time a bit. You see, our modern education system is based on a 19th century factory model. Its main purpose wasn't to cultivate individuality or creativity. It was about churning out obedient and standardized workers and soldiers. It was designed from the ground up for conformity. I absolutely love this metaphor Rose uses. He calls these unnecessary hurdles cognitive unicycles. Just imagine a math genius who is, for whatever reason, terrible at riding a unicycle. And the school says, sorry, you have to ride this unicycle to get to your math class. It's a completely absurd, totally irrelevant barrier, right? Well, Rose argues our schools are full of these, like forcing kids with poor working memory to memorize long sets of instructions, which stops them from ever getting to the part where they can actually show you how brilliant they are. Okay, so if the system's the problem, what on earth is the solution? Well, it all comes down to one incredibly powerful idea: context. This is the key that unlocks the entire square peg paradox. The big idea here comes from a field called the science of complex systems. But here's the core takeaway, nice and simple. Your behavior isn't some fixed part of you, like your eye color. Instead, it emerges from this constant dance between you and your environment. And what that means is, a trait that's a weakness in one situation can be a superpower in another. It is all about the context. And wow, does this chart illustrate the point? The exact same traits that got Rose labeled a troublemaker in high school were reframed as huge assets at Harvard. A lack of respect for authority? That became iconoclastic insight. A lack of inhibition was suddenly seen as creativity. He didn't change, his context did. And hey, this isn't just some feel-good theory, there's real science to back it up. Take this incredible study of astrophysicists who have dyslexia. Sure, they struggled with reading in a traditional classroom setting. But that same neurological wiring made them better at spotting the visual signatures of black holes in noisy data. A disability in one context became a distinct advantage in another. It's fascinating. Here's another amazing example that shows this in action. Scientists studied the Arial people in Kenya. Now, some of them carry a gene variant that's often linked to ADHD. In the settled farming villages, these individuals were actually less healthy. But get this, in the traditional nomadic lifestyle, they were the ones who were thriving. They were better nourished and healthier. It's a perfect example of how biology isn't destiny. Context is. Okay, so what does this all mean? What's the big takeaway? Well, if context is the secret sauce, then our focus has been all wrong. We need to stop trying to fix the kid and start fixing the context. And that brings us to a practical framework for how we can actually do that in our schools. It's a concept called Universal Design for Learning, or UDL for short. The idea actually comes from architecture. Think about it. Instead of building a staircase and then, as an afterthought, tacking on a clunky ramp for people in wheelchairs, you design the entrance to be accessible for everyone right from the very beginning. UDL applies that same powerful idea to education. So what does this actually look like in a real classroom? Well, it all boils down to one word: flexibility. First, you learn flexibly. That means giving students multiple ways to take in information. Maybe they read a chapter, maybe they watch a video, or maybe they listen to a podcast on the topic. Second, you show what you know flexibly. So instead of just one standardized test for everyone, maybe a student can write an essay or build a model or even, as Rose suggests, perform a puppet show to demonstrate their understanding. It's all about building options in from the very start instead of treating every kid like they're exactly the same. And all of this, it really leads us to one final, powerful conclusion. It's a pretty simple idea, but you know what? It's also a pretty radical one. Rose uses this powerful analogy of rain sticks. For centuries, people would use chants and rain sticks, hoping for a simple, magical fix to a super complex system like the weather. He says we do the exact same thing with kids. We're always looking for that one magic pill or that one special program to fix them. But behavior, just like the weather, is complex. You can't control it directly, but you can change the conditions. So the real work isn't about finding a better rain stick. It's about a fundamental shift in our mindset. It's about seeing people not as a collection of fixed traits that we have to manage, but as dynamic individuals who are constantly being shaped by the world around them. And that leaves us with this final, crucial question. Instead of asking how we can fix a problem child, what if we started asking, how do we create environments where every mind can thrive? Shifting our focus from fixing the individual to designing better environments, well, that isn't just a nicer way to think. It's how we can finally unlock the potential in every single square peg and make sure that the next innovator or visionary doesn't drop out with a 0.9 GPA.